sick of it, and have some comment to make.
Is she still in Milwaukee?
No, they bought a house in Otana.
Okay, so she's back.
Yeah, she's worked, well, she was, I think she maybe worked for 2 months before,
Okay.
just sometime this fall, she got done.
'Cause that's where she's from, isn't it?
Yeah. Trying to sell my house.
Chris?
They are not.
And I give her my shit, my man can,
It's not even
I
in
wanna be
the
Trav's neighbor.
I'm gonna finish off your shed.
It's interesting.
Oh.
Just put a bed
Oh.
in the shop area, get a little grease, beer spills out. Place to sit when you come in and take cards.
Yeah.
All right, are you ready, Dr. Carlson? All right, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This time I will call on Ms. Flatness for the roll call, please, this evening.
Karen Flatness here. Joanne Maloney, absent. Rich Mueller.
Here.
Travis Rao.
Here.
Neil Flake.
Here.
Dan Schmidt.
Here.
Rick Schultz.
Here. Thank you, Ms. Flatness. We have an agenda in front of us this evening. I would entertain a motion to approve that agenda.
So move.
Second. Motion made by Mr. Schlake, seconded by Mr. Schmidt to approve the agenda as presented. Ms. Flatness, please.
Karen Flatness, aye. Rich Mueller.
Aye.
Travis Rao.
Aye.
Neil Flake.
Aye.
Dan Schmidt.
All right.
Rick Schultz.
Aye. Are there any public comments this evening, Dr.
No.
Carlson? No? We'll move right into the superintendent's report then. Dr. Carlson, please.
Well, you find in the written report just a couple reminders or bring your attention to that on January 25th, we do have a planned budget work session. And right now it's to begin at 5:30. As we get closer, we'll talk about potential meal plans if there's an interest in doing that or not. But prior to that is our January 4th organizational meeting, and the main purpose is to do the required annual organizational procedural things that we need to do, but also it's likely that, very possible we'll need to, because of timing issue, add a few other agenda items that I will review with the board chair in planning that agenda. Otherwise, you have the principal reports. They are both here. If you have questions, we're available to answer anything that you see in the reports or anything else, if we can. Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Carlson. At this time, I would entertain any board member comments. I would like to start by recognizing the staff, and I meant to, through this pandemic, recognize them more than we maybe have as a board, but I'm sure some of you have had the opportunity to thank them individually, but it goes without saying that they're doing an outstanding job under the conditions, and I just think it deserves to be shared that I have had parents contact me and community members thanking them for the job they do under these circumstances, and I want them to know that, you know, all across the district, staff members are appreciated from us as a board and the community, parents, and all those involved with the system. So thank you to everyone involved. With that, I'd like to move. Go
I'd
ahead.
like to make a comment. Spending a couple different terms on school board and stuff, and if anybody is listening, it's a really good education to know how a school function and attend meetings when the school's asking to share information, to take part in the communities, the school district, and rather than going by coffee shop talk and stuff like that, that just I hear too much of that, and I just think we go through great efforts putting on informational meetings, and this past year it was hard with the COVID stuff going on, but I just really would encourage people to attend stuff when it's asked of them and presented to them.
All right,
Mr. Schultz, I got one more I'd like to share with you.
you bet.
I talked to a staff member today, and I know we can't thank them enough for what they do for us, but they were thanking the school board for everything that we've done for them through this whole pandemic and all the extra meetings and all the extra things that we've done for the school district.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Mueller. Continuing on the theme of appreciation, we do have two board members that are joining us as board members for the last time. Again, putting the words back at you, Mr. Schlake, I hope you remain involved, both of you, in supporting and being educated of the goings-ons in the school district. But at this time, we have small tokens of appreciation to present both of you, and thank you for your years of dedicated service. So whoever wants, or we want to do them both together here under the
Sure, well, keep our
distance.
distancing
Right.
and hand up, and we'll even try to do a photo of
Sure.
some distancing, and we'll,
I'm gonna come
maybe
over
over
this
here.
direction here, and we'll. Once again, Ms. Colseth has outperformed herself on gifts and small recognition, but in appreciation for your service on the school board, we have just some small tokens of appreciation there. Again, as I've said before,
Thank you.
yes, the easiest thing to do is to stand on the outside and look in and point to all the criticisms and the things that could be better. in
Oh,
YouTube.
yeah,
You
6 feet
We'll
apart.
make it quick. Don't worry.
We should make it quick.
He's looking the other way.
That's for those two. People will get excited and think I'm leaving. But no, to continue on with that, thank you again for both of you for your service to the district. I feel that you both have contributed with much sincerity and dedication, and we truly do appreciate people stepping up and being willing to serve. So still continue that support for the district, and thank you both. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would,
go
we
ahead.
also
Dr.
have
Wilson.
ordered some updated little plates that you'll be able to attach to your bells that you have previously been given in your past service. And so those will have the updated dates of service for you.
And this is
I think you deserve a round of applause.
Thank you again. Again, Dr. Carlson has hit on some of the informational portion, but January 4th will be our organizational meeting. And then after that, our next regular scheduled meeting will be Tuesday, January 19th. And then the the budget work session for January 25th. With that, we'll move right into the consent agenda items. And Dr. Carlson, would you introduce those, please?
Thank you. You have the board meeting minutes for the November 16th board meeting, the November 23rd special meeting, and also the December 15th special meeting. You have board bills totaling $872,486. We acknowledge and thank 4 donations this evening. The Rosenau Legacy Special Ed Literature for the amount of $1,000. E.F. Johnson Foundation actually donating $1,500 towards the Community Ed Youth Development Scholarships, and also $3,000 towards scholarship for seniors. We have the City of Allendale, $4,557 that we acknowledge here through the CARES Fund grant and targeting elementary, for a total of $10,057. To date, if we've added the numbers, we are around just shy of $45,000. At this time, we have 2 coaching contracts as part of the consent agenda this evening. We have a number of other positions. Not all of them are ready to be presented, so we will hold. Most of those are assistant level positions, lower level positions. We are still waiting on some. We will bring those to the board as soon as those are ready. That's one thing that if we're ready, we can bring those even as early as the January 4th, which as of now, I'll report later, but that is looking at the first day of practice for our winter sports as well. Under statewide enrollment options, looking ahead, we have 1 student from another district planning to attend our district next year. That's what we have within the consent agenda this evening. As always, if you want the board to consider any of those items separately, which would include if you have a need to discuss or ask any questions, you would simply request of the board chair to pull that item out. Otherwise, we'd be looking at a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I got one question. It revolves around the coaching, and I know it's hard to find coaches, and I appreciate the coaches, but being they lose out on, do we prorate their salaries or just pay them the same? I mean, it's kind of a petty thing, because like I say, I appreciate people that are willing to coach, but I just didn't know whether it was a fall coaching or the winter season. How do you handle that when they're?
You want to have discussion, or you want to decide?
All right.
Well,
I'm fine with it. I mean,
Yeah,
it's just a question I had, I guess. But.
Whatever you're comfortable with.
As long as it isn't pertaining to an additional item in this, I guess that we're not pulling it out of the consent agenda, I believe we can.
Okay, so
Continue
I'm
and
sorry,
just
Mr.
answer
Slade,
that
would you want to
question.
try to repeat?
I was just wondering if they're prorated or if they're the same, being we lost a month of the season.
Because of the adjustments in the seasons?
Yeah.
Yeah. This would go back to
when they're in-
an agreement we've had since, I believe it might have been August or sometime. So it applied to the fall season too.
Okay.
It is, I'm going to do my best to keep this brief, but we will go by what the high school league defines as a season, as the full season,
Okay.
okay? And our coaches and others will be, receive their full compensation according to the Schedule D in the contract if they complete the full season as, in this case for our athletics, as defined by the high school league. If there are interruptions in that, if we would decide to delay the start, or if we have to end prematurely, whatever the case may be, then it falls back to a proration.
Okay. Fair enough. I was just curious.
Right,
I mean,
that's
it's
a legit
kinda goofy
question,
here.
so.
Yep.
And I do appreciate people willing to step to, no matter what level, so we need,
Very demanding job, as they all are currently.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Sorry. Motion made by Mr. Schlake, seconded by Mr. Schmidt to approve the consent agenda items as presented. Ms. Flatness, please.
Karen Blattness, aye. Rich Mueller,
Aye.
Travis Rauth,
Aye.
Neil Flake,
Aye.
Dan Schmidt,
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye. Motion carries. Looking at the 2021-22 school year calendar, Dr. Carlson, please.
Thank you. This will be a 2-meeting process. We just wanted to bring attention to the board's attention this evening that There's been work that's gone on for the 21-22 calendar, and so tonight just want to present that to you, maybe make some notes, and then the plan would be to, at the January 19th, I think, is the regular meeting, we would bring that forward to ask you for your approval. So this is a preliminary draft, and what you have is, it really mirrors very closely this year's calendar, especially the original calendar that we started this year going into with. And so some of the things that you would note, for example, is for the past number of years, we start the school year for staff with staff development. And that's where in the red with the black border, the height of the bolded black borders, at the last 2 days in August and then the first days of September. So those would be professional development days for all teachers, the teaching staff, and then some of those days would be for our support staff and so on. You kind of make your way through the calendar. There are additional professional development days. There are planning days for teachers at the end of each quarter. Those are really not any different than what we've operated under for the last several years. The yellows help us note the end of the quarter. You'll see that we've continued at this time. You might remember a year ago, we talked, I think it was this year, or maybe 2 years now, that we felt our staff development committee felt that let's look at perhaps a mixture of planned late starts coupled with early dismissals for our professional development. There are 4 of those. We have those highlighted in green. And so we continue with those, so that there's no change there. And otherwise, I don't have anything else to highlight. Mr. Bunn, Mr. Anderson, is there anything else from our preliminary work that we wanted to highlight for the board tonight?
I have a question as to, this still consists of a staff committee involvement with this, or what the committee looks like?
We've had a core group over the last several years that we kind of refer to as the calendar committee. We haven't come together and met this time for this. They had an opportunity to review it.
Good.
We also went to our staff development committee, and their specific focus is on how does the calendar help us as we look to the development of staff. And so those were 2 main groups that have had the opportunity to look at it, and we'll continue to have that in the coming, from now at least until the next board meeting, if there's anything that we need to tweak with it.
Thank you.
Otherwise, this is just to share for a report tonight, and please let us know if you have questions as we go through the next few weeks. And but we hope to be prepared to give you a final draft for approval at the January 19th meeting.
All right, thank you for that. Moving on, the 2021 World's Best Workforce Plan. Dr. Carlson, please.
So I will just briefly introduce, and we have Ms. Jessica Williams with us remotely here tonight, and I want to thank her for the work that she is doing to help in a very challenging time when it comes to the world's best workforce and our continuous improvement plan for the school district. Our principals have been important to this process as well as other key members of our staff. And so tonight, we present to you the plan for this school year. Here we are already in December, and the work has already been going on. And we will share that with you tonight. And they may share some of the challenges that we're experiencing because of the environment that we're working in with COVID, especially when it talks about assessments. So I would welcome Ms. Williams and thank you, Mr. Anderson and Mr. Bunn. I think that we're going to have one of you run the PowerPoint as Ms. Williams kind of takes us through. So, Jessica, it's all yours.
All right, good evening. So as Mr. Carlson mentioned, I am here tonight to share with you our district's World Best Workforce Plan for the 2020-2021 school year. You can go to the next slide for 5 goal areas.
I'm there.
Okay. So you are likely familiar with these areas already. So just to highlight, it is children being ready for kindergarten, 3rd grade students at grade level, post achievement gap, students being ready for career or college after graduation, and then all students graduating from high school. So tonight I'm going to review the goals that we came up with in these areas, and then I'm just also going to go over some action steps that we're taking to meet each one of them. So our first goal area, kindergarten readiness. Our goal has stayed pretty much the same as what you would have seen last year. That our school's kindergarten readiness percentages will meet or exceed the Minnesota state average. And so I just defined on the left here kind of what kindergarten readiness includes. So as you can see, it means all students are age 5 or older when they enter kindergarten, that we have immunization records for all students who are entering kindergarten. And then those are 2 requirements from MDE. And then our school locally has just determined we want to assess all students entering kindergarten with our kindergarten readiness assessment tool. So some things we do to just ensure that we meet this goal is tracking MDE's requirements in case there are ever any changes. Our kindergarten and Bridges staff take care of reviewing and revising the kindergarten readiness assessment, as well as sharing that with parents, and then meeting with Pratt either in late summer or early fall next year. Goal 2, reading well by 3rd grade. This, again, we've seen before. This is the same goal that we used last year. So our 3rd grade reading scores will be at or above the 3rd grade state average in proficiency reading on the MCAs. We did discuss, right now, MDE has communicated that we will be taking the MCA assessment this year, but we just wanted to be sure that just in case that wouldn't happen, we do have alternate ways that we can still measure our students' growth. So you'll see those on the right side. We look at Fontes and Pinnell guided reading levels, STAR reading assessment that we give in school, and then also some common grade level assessments. And some things we do just to ensure we meet that goal is we look at our standards each year. We have an intervention system in place and we're responsive to data that we have on our students. So. For goal 3, we have 2 separate goals, one for the elementary school, and then we've also got one for the secondary, so I'm going to go over elementary first. This slide shares with you that 80% of students will increase their reading proficiency by one grade worth of growth based on that Fontes and Pinnell reading level. So this will look familiar because these are sort of the same action steps that we would be using for that 3rd grade reading goal. We also talked about some alternate measures here because we never want to be looking at just one thing. We want a whole picture approach to this. So we also looked at MSU data, STAR reading assessments, and then those common reading assessments as well. Our secondary grouping goal for closing the achievement gap looks a little bit different this year. So this year, the secondary school will achieve a 20% reduction in the number of failing grades in the secondary school. We took a look at our data that we have right now, and as of fall, the quarter one grades in the high school, there were 251 failing grades. Reducing that by 20% would put us at 281, and we think we can do that or more. Some of the action steps that they're taking over in the high school, they generate grade reports at mid-quarter and end of quarter, and then those are distributed to teachers and other pertinent staff in that building. And then with those reports, they hold background meetings where they meet with at-risk students and a whole team of teachers, parents, the social workers, and discuss some goals. And they end up coming up with a personalized learning plan for those students. It seems to be working pretty well so far, so we're excited about that. For both for college and career readiness, this is the same goal that we set last year. It was a four-year goal, so by 2024, the goal was, this is sort of a part of the picture goal, preparing students. I don't think we could help this. Did we just get that MCIS system in the last year or two? Is it newer to us?
No, I think, well, we've had it for a while, we just haven't utilized it like we're starting to try to utilize it.
Okay. Yeah, so last year we decided we really wanted to utilize that system, and we did get all of our 8th grade students put in there. MCIS, what that is they do things like career surveys, ideas and interest assessments, portfolios, and career planning. And so last year, we did get all of our 8th graders put into the system, and I believe we also did get all of them entered in this year too. So we are on track. We are meeting this goal. But we will see this change over the years. We kind of discuss first. Some other action steps in this area are developing a curriculum for each grade level based on the MCIS report. And then just continuing to implement career awareness into our secondary classroom. And then also we discussed the continuation of the advanced placement and dual credit courses in our secondary school. And finally, the last goal area, all students are grade by 2021. Our four-year graduation rate goal is the Minnesota student average. We did meet that goal last year, and some of the steps we take are identifying students who are credit deficient. Again, those math meetings are going to be an effective tool for that. Revising academic itineraries, and looking at some summer programming. Are there any questions?
Yes, this is Neil Schleich. I have a question, Ms. Williams. What happens, is there action plans when things aren't going to meet goal, or what's the consequences? Or, I mean, whether it's take 3rd grade reading, if that doesn't meet the goal, what do we do to, or any of the goals, I guess, I'm going with. I mean, goals are good, but I just was kind of curious, is there stuff in place to get it there then, or just repeat what you're doing?
Well, so I'm new to this position, but I can speak to what I do know, and we know that we look at the goals and we look at our results from the past year, and we revise them. If we're not meeting them, we take a look at what our action steps were, and whether or not we need to change them, add in new action steps, etc. I'm not sure if I know about it now.
We'll also look too at our curriculum, or are there changes in interventions that we need to make
Okay.
with the students? Do we need to revise an intervention? Is there something with the curriculum or the pacing
And that would all be done before that school year's over then?
we would, since we would get the results in the spring, that would probably be something we would do very late spring or very early fall.
Yeah, because I mean, I like goals and stuff, but I guess state averages, I'd like to think we're better, way better than that. I guess but you gotta have something for a benchmark too, I get it, but.
I can tell you too, just as far as speaking to the reading by third grade goal and the choosing that, we do look at student data all the time throughout the school year. So we know how they're progressing, we know if their reading scores are improving. I know we do have systems for that, so we aren't just waiting for the end of the year to see if they're going as good. We do have other things we look at.
Okay.
I would add that in general, in a continuous improvement plan, when you set goals, as Jessica was referring, you continually are monitoring, evaluating as you go through that yearly cycle. And there are times, and I would argue that in any type of business, as you're operating under goals, there might be times where you do have to do a mid-year reset because of just some factors you weren't expecting. But in general, we try to hold true to what we set out, because hopefully at the start, we thought that it was going to be achievable and things that would be possible to achieve. And so, but there can be times where we have to step back and say, wait a second, this is happening. It could swing either way. We want to continue to stretch ourselves and make sure we're doing everything to stretch our students and really improve and increase that student's achievement as much as possible. So just because we're not on track to meet a goal, it doesn't mean we're automatically going to reset or adjust, but that is possible to do.
Well, a prime example is what we're going through right now. Is not only the state average, but NRHEG, are we gonna, I mean, where do you draw the line before you just keep shoving kids out the door, up a grade? I mean, that concerns, I mean, we miss a lot of, and I know some kids do great online, some do so-so, some do poorly, some, you know, but that's my big concern as a whole district, I guess, as far as how do you...
And, you know, and when I responded, I was referring more to the MCAs where we get, you know, that information in the spring. We're constantly, as Dale and Jessica shared, we have data meetings on a regular basis, and so we decide on an intervention using that data. What does that student need? We track that intervention, and if it's working, great, we're able to move forward. If not, why isn't it working? Do we need to change it?
Okay.
We've historically had some of these measures that now in the last year, and as we reported out last month with the report of last year, it's been a challenge. And what are some of those measures now that we can use even internally, in-house, because we may not be able to depend on some of those other assessments that we've been used to just because of the COVID situation. We experienced that last spring. We're projecting that things will be in place next spring for our state assessment, but I think things still are, I guess we'll wait and see. So it's even more important that we're continually looking for in-house and other ways to measure the progress that our students are making.
Okay, thank
Coming
you.
back to the standards
Yeah.
that we continually
I
try as a
just
school
know-
district to improve upon.
Prior COVID, we were up and down a little bit too, you know, and no two classes are the same. I get all that stuff, but it's just, and I know every educator's goal is 100%, which you know, nothing, and that's not gonna happen, but I just kinda curious on the, as a whole. Thank you.
One of the numbers that jumped out at me during this was, and this is more for the principals than Jessica actually, but thank you for the information, but did we truly have 351 failing grades last fall? And
Q1.
okay, and with that, my math comes out that, and of course I just realized that maybe some students had more than one failing grade, but with our population, that's at least 1 in 3 having a failing, a failing grade in our district, and to me, that is very concerning. And again, I think that goal of 20% improvement by spring is probably quite small. Now, again, I know numbers are just that, they're numbers and we can use what we want to, but I think, again, something that really draws concern to me is that amount of failing grades, and if we're going to use that 20% improvement, that should be an improvement over last year's work instead of picking a quarter that was totally devastating, in my opinion. Or is that the norm? Maybe I need to be educated on what is an acceptable number.
No, that's kind of, unfortunately, kind of statewide, and
Okay.
we talked about it as principals, both in our region and, or our district and Gopher Conference. And
Okay.
that is probably twice the number
Okay.
that we would normally have
Sure.
this time of year.
And again, we can't always blame everything on COVID, but I would assume that's part of the portion, and people or students not in session and not in the classroom. So we can expect that as we move back into a more normal time to get what I would consider under control.
Right.
Because that number is a little frustrating, I think, to me at least, or maybe it's just an eye opener that I haven't witnessed that, but that's a large number for our district, so hopefully.
Well, and you're right, that number, that's not 351 students, that's,
Sure,
Great.
you know,
right,
you have multiple failing grades. I believe the number of students is actually in the hundreds.
okay,
So that, so
That-
a lot of them are probably just one student with multiple,
sure,
but it's great, it's so high, but
sure.
just to try.
I appreciate that clarification, and again, still probably not acceptable for NRHEG, but I'm assured that work will be done there. So thank you.
As you ask your questions, I failed to mention, we are looking, the board is asked to approve the plan, and so we are looking eventually for that tonight as well, to give approval to the plan as presented, or as we end up with tonight.
I'll make a motion to approve the plan as presented.
Mr. Schlake has made a motion to approve. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Routh. Is there any further discussion?
Good thought.
All in favor of approving the 2021 World's Best Workforce Plan as presented? Ms. Latness, please.
Karen Blatnis, aye. Rich Mueller,
Aye.
Travis Ralph,
Aye.
Neil Schleich,
Aye.
Dan Schmidt, Rick Schultz.
Aye. Thank you again. Thank you, Jessica, for joining us this evening and the work you did on that.
You're welcome.
The 2021 school year calendar revision. Dr. Carlson, please.
This is something we're going to ask for the board's approval tonight. We have some additional revisions. This will be at least the second time, if not the third, we've come to you with revisions as we've gone along. This is specific to modifications to the remaining late start and early dismissal staff development dates for this school year. And so specifically on the calendar that's up on the screen, January would be an example, and you can see that on January 13th. By the way, on the previous calendar, looking ahead to next year that I just had up a few moments ago, I had said late starts, early dismissals were in green. Those were, you can see back in November, where we did hold a 2-hour staff development, that was in green. So tonight, what we are asking, and the Staff Development Committee had an opportunity to discuss and review this, and is supportive of this change as well, that we incorporate the remaining 3 late start, early dismissal staff developments, those designated dates and times, into the Wednesday afternoon distance learning planning that we have at this point, and most likely we'll have, looking ahead, a good portion of the remaining school year. This change only applies to this school year. The 4 late start, early dismissal dates will be and are included, as you saw a few minutes ago, in the 21-22 school year calendar. Again, the Staff Development Committee supports this recommendation, and along with others, emphasize how critical it is to maintain this time for staff development moving forward. So just, so there would be a change in January. So what's being proposed is the 13th of January would end up, it already falls on, some of these fall on a Wednesday anyway, which currently are Wednesdays, are our distance learning days. So that's a part of this issue as well. And so we would just incorporate that time into those afternoons. And so this would not be impacting then any kind of shortening of the student day beyond what it already is. One of them, in April, for the last year or two, we have always tried to align, in this case it was for April 30th, sometimes it's in May. Prom is typically, although I don't, for this year, well, typically it's been the first Saturday in May. And so we've always, for the last year or two, we've intentionally scheduled that 2-hour, I believe, early dismissal for that Friday. And so that's how this was set for this year on the 30th and on a Friday. So we would be, that Friday now would be a full day of instruction for students. And we would be embedding that into a Wednesday, which would not end up impacting. So it's 3 dates right now that we are wanting to modify, and I think that's what's being presented for your approval tonight.
But on the 13th, isn't there a chance we're going to be in person by the 11th?
Well,
you're
and
just
I'll
still
get to
being-
that a little bit later.
Okay.
As far as what that might mean, we've not gone there yet. We're talking about the impact of Wednesdays, but
Just getting to be.
yeah.
But I appreciate the staff realizing that we've had a lot of non-student contact time there, and I appreciate them supporting this being student contact day, stepping away from these dates. So again, back to your point, I think when we're all under the impression when in-person learning comes back, then the distance portion, but we will save that for Dr. Carlson's presentation a little bit later here. But thank you to the staff development for realizing that we need that student contact time. So that would be separate of any Wednesday
Yes.
approval or disapproval.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Okay.
So this is just to change the calendar,
Yeah.
noting that.
Right.
And any change in the learning model beyond that happens that would impact or drive a needed change in the calendar,
Right,
we would address that at a later time.
perfect.
And so I put a draft motion, if that was something approved, to incorporate the late start, early dismissal, designated staff development dates and times for the remainder of the 2020-2021 school year into the Wednesday afternoon distance learning planning. This revision would result in not maintaining the 2-hour late start or early release within the student instructional day.
I'll make a motion to approve the revised 2021 school calendar.
I had a question.
Mr. Mueller has made a motion to approve the revision to the calendar. Is there a second? Mr. Slake has a question.
I just had a question in regards to the 5 flex days with what is gonna happen if we do get some snow days and we got these 5 flex days? Are we gonna add them on it? I mean, I think that's a legit question here on this calendar and with how much, so to me, I'd like to see them made up in June rather than have 5 more online. And I don't know if that's in the teacher agreement either, but it worries me. Yeah, we've had a very beautiful fall, winter, whatever you want to call it so far. But now all of a sudden we're able to be in person in school. Are we going to lose 5 more days to the, I'll call it
To the
distance learning?
Right.
So that was a question I had, was to do with the flex days. And maybe that's not,
There's
if that's
I'll
in
do
the
my best to
contract.
answer that. There's been no plans to alter those up to 5 flex days at this point.
Is that a contractual thing, or that's something that I mean, that's just a question I have, and I won't be here next month, so I guess that's a question I wouldn't mind knowing, because it is a,
Maybe I can elaborate a little bit. There has been conversation, and you'll see that statewide and beyond statewide. Where does the distance learning of what we've been doing, how does that play into a potential weather day issue? And so if we were to be on distance learning like we are now, and we have a weather event tomorrow, it's pretty much distance learning.
yeah, I'm getting
But
talking like a March.
if we come back, we're in hybrid or if we're in person, and then we're not necessarily, I don't think people should just assume that we can just jump right to a distance learning day and have it. There still might be differences that we just haven't worked through yet, where we still might have to, on paper, call it a flexible learning day. So we've discussed this, but we're just not at that point. So
Yeah, and
we haven't done anything
I just hope
further
it's in
to alter the
consideration, I
5
guess, is what I'm
days.
asking. Because I got a feeling, I don't know if there's any school districts that haven't been in school as little as we have, it just seems like, and that's,
And just to be clear on the motion that Mr. Mueller has made here to approve the adjustments of this school calendar, and Rich, I don't want to talk for you, but I guess I would caution the board that, once again, we're approving them taking these early releases or late starts out of the calendar. But I don't think it is our position as a board to approve the continuation. I want to keep that completely separate, the continuation of the Wednesday distance learning portion of the remainder of the year to match up with what our learning model adjusts to. So if that helps for any clarification, and again, Mr. Mueller, this is your motion, so if that's not the intent of that, please correct me. But I by no means want to give approval to Wednesday afternoons being assured of distance learning for the remainder of the year. That is not my position currently on supporting this adjustment to the calendar. So
you know, and I
Mr.
think,
Schultz, the intent of my motion was to approve taking out the late starts, early dismissals, and moving those to the Wednesdays.
Say that again?
My intention of the motion was to approve taking the late starts, early dismissals out and moving that teacher development stuff to the Wednesdays afternoon.
Okay, and have that continue throughout the year?
Well, until things, which we have to look at this again in the future.
Sure.
Maybe Mr. Schultz, I can, if
Yeah,
something,
and
if something would alter in the future, the Wednesday afternoons, that will come back to the board.
Sure,
So that would have to address this, and
sure.
so, but that's not the intent tonight.
Okay,
Aren't we essentially looking at the gray highlighted pieces that we've discussed up there?
Highlighted.
Yeah, well, all we did here is, maybe I should have kept the 13th highlighted in green down here in January. I can't do it now, but we just struck that and made a note here that we're going to, as needed, if needed, we're going to take that time and capture it for teachers during that Wednesday afternoon, that it's already that's really scheduled technically for a planning time for distance learning. So we want to be careful. So what we're saying though is we are going to remove those from those 3 dates.
And I want to clarify my point. I understand if we're already online learning, we have a snow day, I get that. I'm just saying if we're in person and they use it for flexible learning day, I'd rather see that day made up, and that's what I didn't know how that got, because that was the only thing that bothers me. It was in there, part of the agreement, the teacher agreement when he started. That's the five flex learning days was a bigger issue to me if them happened when we were in person and missing out on some more in-person contact, I guess is my point. That's the only issue I had is in that, but maybe that's not a place to discuss that here anyhow. I mean, that's,
If the board would like to direct us and to bring that issue back of the 5 flexible learning days.
kind of a separate issue from
yeah,
where we're at
I mean,
right
that's the
now.
only thing I was concerned with.
And again, we've been down that path of how you make up those snow days, which is better to use a flex day electronically and do them during the calendar year or follow them up. So that might, but it's a valid point. I know your intention there is to get the student instruction time in the classroom is what, and I think that's the intent of this conversation here too, but.
I agree with what you're saying, Neil, but the bigger problem is we gotta get the school open.
Right.
You know,
Right.
We're talking
No,
about,
I
we're
get
talking
that.
about a couple
I
days
get
here.
that.
You know, we need to
That was
get
just
them
that
back.
little box
Right.
there that I was hoping that would.
I agree
I'm not
with
gonna
you.
be here.
I agree with you, but the bigger problem is just getting them back at all.
Right. So I guess, back to the motion on the floor here of approving the calendar revision is the way I understand it. I'll call for a second here.
Second.
So motion has been made by Mr. Mueller, seconded by Mr. Schlake to approve the calendar revision as presented. Is there any further discussion? Ms. Flatness?
Karen Flatness, aye. Rich Mueller,
Aye.
Travis Rouse,
Aye.
Neil Slake,
Aye.
Dan Schmidt,
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you and good discussion throughout there, so. Moving on to the learning model update. Dr. Carlson, please.
Well, I'm just going to share with you where I think things are at as of tonight. Both schools have been preparing to return to hybrid learning on January 11 as directed by the board at the December 15th special school board meeting. We are able to still move to hybrid learning on January 11th and not wait until January 18th because we had consulted with our regional support team on December 15th, and then the board then announced plans through its decision the evening of December 15th. In addition, we do not have to implement, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a little bit, a 2-week rolling start for hybrid because, again, we already had approval from our regional support team. But this only applies to a return to hybrid learning and not in person. Tonight, there are no recommendations to modify the learning model plans. However, it is possible and even likely that a recommendation will be presented to the board no later than Monday, January 4th, to address the possibility of transitioning the elementary school to all in-person learning beginning as early as January 18th. Per the State Safe Learning Plan updated last week on December 16th and then again today, for those schools who have not been in person yet this school year, like us, the earliest we can even consider moving to in-person learning is January 18th. Whether a school is returning to hybrid learning or moving to in-person learning, there are additional mitigation strategies that must be in place. For example, all staff must now wear both a mask and I have a couple of examples here, a face shield at all times when in the presence of others, which includes being in the same room, like we are tonight. So at future board meetings, guess what? We'll have face shields too. While the state has provided shields at the start of the school year, and we are told more will be provided, we do believe the quality of those are not the best, so we are in the process of securing additional face shields. Other mitigation strategies for both hybrid and in-person learning include staff must continue the 6 feet of social distancing from students and one another. Staff must have the opportunity to be tested every 2 weeks, and that will be provided through the school district. One notable one that now in our PE, our physical education classes, students will now have to be masked in their PE class as well. When planning for moving to in-person learning, and most notably at the elementary school, we will need to make sure that a 2-week rolling start is implemented in which, for example, our Bridges kindergarten through grade 2 would attend in person, and for 2 weeks while they're doing that, grades 3 and 5 would attend in hybrid learning for those 2 weeks. Also, at least 2 days of planning for staff must be scheduled, which would result in no school for students. All meals must be consumed in classrooms unless we can maintain 6 feet distancing in the cafeteria. And we do believe for breakfast, because of the numbers, the less numbers for breakfast, we will be able to use the cafeteria because we can maintain the 6 feet distancing. I just want to briefly talk, because there's been questions about that from the guidance, that I think one of the ideas is that you'll see the common theme throughout all this is, as much as we can, to keep the classroom together and not move them. And not move them to common spaces that are shared. So if we bring all students back, all 18, 19, 20 students back to a classroom, and they eat in the classroom and they're not going to be distancing 6 feet. Now, the guidance says we need to make sure that we do everything we can, if possible, to at least maintain 3 feet. So one might say, well, if you can do more than 3 feet in the cafeteria, why not do that, even though you might not make it to 6 feet? I think the premise is trying to limit movement throughout the school, especially sharing common spaces. Special, so for example, at the elementary school, music and computers. Those will need to be held in the classroom. However, we are continuing to explore that, especially with music. But a little bit of that is, so we're going to still try to seek clarity if there's any other options to have the students travel to the music room, for example. But I think in the end, we're some of that same idea is to limit those common spaces of how much kids touch, sit, and share as possible. Physical education may be held outside or in the gymnasium, but masks must be worn. A greater emphasis on, even kind of coupled with recess. Recess will be allowed, but a greater emphasis on keeping the classroom together than what we perhaps have been. Student support programs, special education, counseling, things like that. As of today, we feel that we're going to be able to maintain what we do as far as any students that we remove and pull out for a period of time and spend some one-on-one or small group time with them. We are going to be able to continue that. So while I'm not making a recommendation this evening, and I don't want to get into too much detail since we're still working on it, I will share with you the following about tentative elementary plans. Tentative plans are being examined for the elementary school, which target January 18th to begin a 2-week rolling start. We're still examining if returning to hybrid learning at the elementary school on January 11, as the board has directed, will still be beneficial if the target to begin the 2-week rolling start in person is a week later. We're still working and determining when the best dates would be for those 2 days of required planning for elementary staff, which are required, prior to any start of in-person learning. We're still working on what the present distance learning Wednesday will look like for the elementary school when moving to in-person, since we will continue to have full-time distance learners. So that's what we believe we still will need to consider, work on that, and perhaps keep that to some degree. We are still determining what the present afternoon mandated planning for staff might look like for the elementary school once the in-person learning model is in place. As long as there are full-time distance learners enrolled, it is our understanding we still must maintain the 30 minutes per day average for staff to plan for distance learning. Regarding secondary school plans, plans continue to move forward with hybrid learning beginning January 11th. While it is not mandated, there is consideration being given to provide some planning time for staff to prepare for the transition. This would likely occur during the week of January 4, probably towards the end of the week. There are some additional mitigation strategies that we have to make sure that we have in place, even for this school building returning to hybrid. So we need to make sure that we're thinking through those to make sure we can make those happen. The distance learning Wednesday, along with the afternoon distance learning planning for staff, would likely continue for the secondary school at this time because it will be the hybrid schedule. I do want to mention that it is likely you will see neighboring school districts either continue or return elementary schools to in-person learning as early as January 11 and not wait until January 18. It is also possible that some of those schools will not be implementing a 2-week rolling start. One of the reasons for this, possibly, is that those schools have already been in an in-person learning model previously, where we have not. They also might have consulted with the regional support team prior to December 16th to get approval, much like what we did, to be able to recommend to the board on December 15th to return to hybrid learning as early as January 11th. It is likely I will ask the board to consider adjusting our school learning plans, most notably at the elementary school, at the January 4th organizational meeting at the latest. It's possible that a recommendation will be ready to present sometime next week. I will work with Board Chair Mr. Schultz to determine if it can or should wait until January 4th. So I know that that's a long report to sit and listen to. I know that Mr. Anderson, Mr. Bunn, and I are happy to respond to any of your questions, and we'll do the best we can at this point. But there's still work to be done. I just want to remind people that a week ago, well, not even a week ago, Tuesday night, we met and moved forward with hybrid learning. I'll have to say it was not on my radar, our radar at that time, that within 24 hours we would have kind of a new rules, new guidance, and what happened is, by the time, as soon as that came out, if you hadn't already taken action, or if you hadn't announced it through board action, if you had not already met with your regional support team, there are some then that, because they didn't do that, that they're held automatically to the January 18th date in many ways. And so there's just, I have to say, I did not see this coming, even as we sat here Tuesday night. So anyway, what questions can we attempt to answer for you tonight?
I have a couple. So if music and technology down in the elementary are more wanting to look in class, is there going to be time for those kiddos to go to the library? I know that, there's a lot of surfaces, but is that, that's always good to get kids getting books in their hands. Is that, or haven't we touched that area?
We are still looking and having that option.
Okay. And then for lunches in the elementary, is it going to be hot lunches or cold lunches? Because I'm assuming with the carpets in those rooms, I'm just curious.
The plan is it will be hot lunches. They'll probably be served in to-go containers.
Okay. I'm just trying to think of the floor.
Those are great because you bring food into the classroom, automatically more maintenance,
Right.
more disinfecting. So absolutely.
The testing for the staff, is that strictly at the school's expense, or is there any assistance coming from the state on that, since it sounds like that's their requirement? Or did I misinterpret that?
I don't think anybody's paid for testing yet, damn it, I know.
Okay.
At this time, we believe the state.
Okay.
But it's going to be, and I did excuse Donna tonight. I thought we could give her the night off. Well deserved, I have to say. But I can tell you she was on a webinar today. She's our go-to person for testing. We are going to, we're getting we've contracted for additional nursing going into the school year with Steele County Public Health, and so we're in the process of reaching out, getting some help. But the local school district is responsible for really administering that. So we'll be given things, but we have to make it happen. But at the cost,
Where do we draw the line on runny noses and I mean, all of a sudden we have no flu, you know, and I'm not making light of the COVID, but now they get a runny nose or a cough, we send them home, is that correct? Or is that,
We hope they don't come.
yeah, but
Okay,
whether it's a flu or
Right.
COVID.
as far as right now, nothing will change on
But I know flu
symptoms
numbers have
and-
been phenomenal low this year, because I haven't heard of it yet.
None of that will change, and so
But they should come to school, just like you say, Mr.
Right,
Shields.
yeah.
same expectations. Parents need to keep kids home for a sniffle, and those symptoms that we followed all year, as far as to my knowledge, none of that has changed.
And
And,
I can't help but get out of my head is a daycare. Have you missed, I mean, in person coming, and there's, in my opinion, little kids are the worst bug carriers, and they keep marching on without, I mean, I haven't heard of any daycare shutting down either, but, I mean, it's frustrating for all of us, and I know, but it just,
again, one can be asymptomatic and still be a spreader for the virus. So, and all along, I've not pretend, I don't want to come across anywhere close to a public health expert, so I'm going to leave that to those folks. What else can we,
So to clarify, we're doing right now hybrid, January 11th, January 18th, Bridges kindergarten through second grade, every day, however that may look on the calendar. Is that what it's, I mean, is that what the report said that you're reading? The new, I just want to make sure I'm listening.
first of all, the only thing the board has approved is both schools can start hybrid no earlier than January 11th.
Okay,
And what I'm saying to you tonight is very tentative plans are we are targeting January 18th to start the 2-week rollout,
okay,
rolling start
for the elementary.
for the elementary. And January 11th, I think we're probably a little bit more, we're more confident in the January 11th start for secondary and hybrid to follow what the board has directed. I think what we're examining is what's the most important goal here, and if it's trying to get the all-in-person started as soon as we can, which is the 18th, how can we best achieve that goal? And will that mean that I need to come back to the board and say, we need to adjust that January 11th hybrid week plan? That's what I can't share with you tonight. There's still work to be done on that.
Doctor, sorry to interrupt, I just want to make sure I understand. So when you explain to me the rolling start, so January 18th, does that mean we're going to be full-time every day January 18th? The rolling start was ahead of that? Or we're supposed to ease into it by 2 weeks?
The earliest you could start that would be January 18th. And what the rolling start means is you cannot bring back all in person every day more than 3 grade levels in a school building. So in the elementary school, we consider Bridges and kindergarten we're gonna treat that as the same level, grade level. So we have 6 grade levels. So it works out that we can have 3 and 3. And so what the rules are is that no earlier than January 18th, we could begin a 2-week rolling start. So we would, our feeling is, let's start with our youngest 3 grade levels. K2, Bridges K up to through grade 2. They would be able to start on Monday, January 18th, in person, the whole class. At the same time, grade 3-5 would be able to be in hybrid. So they would be doing the hybrid schedule for 2 weeks. So then on February 1, if this would all work out, Bridges kindergarten through grade 5 would be all in person.
So you could do the same thing in the senior high building then too? You could bring back middle school and high school or vice versa?
Under the hybrid, because we had consulted with our regional support team, we do not have to do a 2-week rolling start. Well, we won't address right now. I mean, we're not even looking ahead to, at what point would the secondary school be looking at in person? We're not there yet, and when we get there, because we will get there.
So are these recommendations or actual rules and policy that the school districts have to follow?
Yeah, most of these that I'm mentioning are requirements.
Okay, I was just kind of curious, so it seems like so many districts are doing different things, so that's, I just didn't know.
Can you either email that list of all the guidelines that the state is using, or where can I find them?
Yeah, I will certainly do that.
At some point,
We'll do that. It's, all I did is we take pretty much, I will make sure the safe learning plan, it's on the MDE website. It was just updated again this morning.
Okay.
And there are specific pages that we can certainly make that available. And
Okay.
so we have pages that, most notably probably, page 10, starting there.
11.
Page 10, 11, 12, and then there's a couple
16.
pages later, it talks about the testing.
Okay,
So, but we can, yeah.
okay, thank you.
Can I ask, how many days has a high school, secondary, or elementary been in person this year?
0.
Yeah,
As far as
All
Anyway.
in person.
full in
Full time.
person,
yeah,
full in person. And,
Through the hybrid, they.
yeah, I get that, but we've never been,
Right.
I thought we
So-
made them first couple of days for some reason.
So if that's a regulation, January, so other people, I'm just kind of curious why we can't start a 2-week rolling start from the day we start. Why can't we say this is what we're doing, and then that gets us full-time a week sooner, since we're rolling anyway. Maybe it's just because they're not prepared for that.
if
The
you
kids
wanted
every day.
to start in person, I'm just gonna speak to our case. If we wanted to start in person at the elementary school prior to the 18th, we need to have a consultation with our regional support team. And right now, we couldn't get scheduled with them anytime before the week of January 4th to even do that.
Well, I'm gonna leave it in your guys' hand, do the best you can.
Well, and I think the one thing we can leave administration, and I don't put this directly toward Dr. Carlson, but our 2 principals are in house here tonight too, and I appreciate that, but I mean, the underlying tone of this board has been and will continue to be, we want them back in person as quickly and as efficiently as we possibly can. I don't think that's any news to any of the administrators here, that that's been our objective. Are we going to follow guidelines? I would suggest that we do. Again, we don't need to vote on that. I think that's our obligation to follow guidelines, but a lot of this talk has been elementary, and I know that's our priority to get them back in person the quickest. Secondary, it's time to get back there too. We've got to work that just as
Absolutely. If you're gonna
as
put the
detailed
school
and
activities
get on. I think there's some value in aligning the 2 buildings together, and this idea of Again, it's a lot of work. I know there are hurdles to cross, but we need to get there as efficiently and as quickly, and it does frustrate me a little bit, and I know this isn't our administration's, it's perhaps from the state, but a 2-day requirement to allow staff to prepare, and again, staff are hopefully joining us tonight, and I know there's plenty of work to do there. Our staff is very capable of educating in-person students. I think they'll welcome the fact of having them in the classroom too. It frustrates me that there is, again, non-student connection days there. And again, back to some of the numbers we had earlier tonight, we've got to get the job done of educating these students, and the best way to do that's in the classroom. So not an action item, but we want to be clear as a board to steer administration to efficiently and promptly get these students back in as quickly as we possibly can.
And you'll see in the guidance, as far as secondary school, that guidance has not changed that much as far as determining how to keep, going to that step. And so that will not change. We're weekly. What's been nice is weekly I'm on a conference call with folks from not only our counties, public health, but also the Department of Health. So I feel like we're having a weekly consultation. And so that will continue to be the process that we will continue to follow, and there's no question, and I don't think it needs to be a board directive. I think I can say we're all in this idea of trying to get our students back in person as soon as we can do that safely. So, absolutely.
To go off of what Rick said, the grades showing in that first quarter in the high school, but also in the elementary, some of those kids are going through the motions when they're distance learning. They're just going through the seesaw, yep, I'm done, but are they actually retaining and really understanding? Or are they just going through the motions, yep, I did it, okay, I'm done for the day. And I think also to be not cautious, but understanding we need to get the kids in sooner, because we're going to end up losing some of our students to other districts if we don't bring them back, needless to say, in a safe way. But we will. I got a phone call today with a parent saying, they're thinking of moving out because of districts around that. We really need to start working on those plans in the high school to get these kids back in, because I can see, which will be devastating to our district, with our numbers going down. So it's just something to think about from the phone call that I got today. But, the grades show in the high school, but what about, what are they retaining in the elementary, which is crucial right now? It's just something we need to, as a whole district, to really think about as we move forward and how fast we do it before we lose our learners who used to love school and are really frustrated now.
I'm getting the same phone calls, Karen. People are,
Yeah.
they're
Enough.
at wit's end. They're
Yes.
looking to other districts that may or may, I don't know, I haven't been paying attention, but I'm getting those calls too. So I'd like to echo Rick, Mr. Schultz's and Mrs. Flatness's comments too, that we need to pay some pretty serious attention to secondary and think about getting them going, instead of kicking the can of that down the road another month after.
Yep.
We need to pay close attention, I think, and try to start preparing.
I have a feeling that, again, I'll get off of the subject eventually, but that 351 sticks in my mind, and of failing grades. I would hope that week of January 4th through the 11th, some of those students that have that type of issue could perhaps get some of those back into the school building and the school setting. Some of these kids are obviously begging for help here to get these, or needing it. If they're not begging for help, they would appreciate it and need it. And And those are great times to get a hold of them and get that number under control. Again, not basing it off of anything that comparable, but it's eye-opening to me as a board member of the school district. So please use this time to the best of our abilities to get the education process back to where it belongs in the district.
And on that number, Rick, I don't want the teachers saying it's on them, because
course
that's, I
not.
just want to point that out, that it's the kids who are struggling.
Absolutely.
The teachers are doing all that they can do. They can only do so much across the computer screen to get that work done. So I just wanted to,
Right.
feel that it's not on the teachers.
I
They are
appreciate
doing the
that.
best.
I hope I didn't give that tone.
No, and I just wanted to make sure that's not how it came across.
Right.
I think the parents are struggling as well, trying to get
Absolutely.
their kids to do things, and so I just
trying
wanted to
times.
point that out.
Yep. Good conversation. Is there any other things we want to add on this particular subject, or we'll move on to?
Oh, I just wish we could beat COVID like we beat this subject to death.
It'd been long gone. Very, very good information, and again, we appreciate all the work, but we want to be clear as a board of what our direction is too. So, unless Dr. Carlson has something to add on that we haven't, we will move on to the school activities update, please, Dr. Carlson.
This is much shorter. We are still targeted to start practices on January 4th. I don't have any new information to share with the board tonight, but we will attempt to answer questions you may have. I believe I see that Mr. Stork is available online at this time too. And Mr. Stork, I know you and I talked earlier today. Has anything else you want to add right now, other than take questions from the board?
No, there isn't. We haven't had any new developments since the last meeting.
So, questions, board members?
So let it rip.
Hey, Mr. Stark, this is Beach Board. I might be putting the cart before the horse, but when we actually get back to our winter sports and they actually come up with some games, how are those going to be handled? Will we feel like the fall ones, only limited people and doing stuff like that?
Yeah, to be honest, Rich, we have not received those specific guidelines from the state yet, like we did for fall sports, where there was, like the first day of the volleyball game when they told us we could have fans that day. That was they haven't, we do have some very specific guidelines, but they have not told us yet how many fans. I'm assuming it's going to be 2 fans per participant again, but we don't know the specifics of that yet. And that does create some huge problems for us, because we have probably one of, if not the smallest gyms in our conference, and it's a lot of requirements, like fans have to be 12 feet away from the playing surface. Well, we don't have much more than 12 feet away from our playing surface, and that makes it very, very difficult to fit fans in there, and along with your players, and we want to give our cheerleaders the opportunity to cheer, things like that. It's, to say the least, it's been a challenge, and it's going to be a challenge, yeah.
Any other questions? All right, well, thank you again, all involved with the updates here. So,
Thank you, Mr. Stork.
So getting off of the subject of COVID, we can move on to something.
Not much better.
Right, our finances. Now, we do obviously have the levy certification to approve this evening, and Dr. Carlson would like to present that, please.
Well, if I can figure out a way to get down. All right, so this was towards the end of our slide at the Truth and Taxation meeting. You're asked to approve the recommended levy as presented earlier this evening. And I show the resolution on the screen for the board. And any remaining questions, I know Ms. Christopherson will assist, but unless you have questions, we would be looking for approval or motion on approving, advancing the resolution.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Slake, seconded by Mr. Routh to approve the payable 2020-21 levy certification as presented. Any further discussion? Ms. Flatness, please.
Karen Flatness, aye. Rich Mueller,
Aye.
Travis Brown,
Aye.
Neil Schleich,
Aye.
Dan Schmidt,
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye. Motion carries. Looking at the community education school age care lead holiday pay. Dr. Carlson, please.
Thank you. And I know Ms. Whiteside is on tonight too, so I thank her for joining us in the event that the board has questions. I've worked with Ms. Whiteside on this. She came and is recommending a revision to the 2021 notice of assignments to be issued to our school age care staff. And if I need your help, Ms. Whiteside, please just volunteer and join me. But remember our school age care program, which is in our second or third year, Macy?
We're going on our second year now.
Thank you. And that's really the early in the morning, then after school, and then also occasionally other days that there's no school that we might accommodate and help parents, as well as during the summer. We have staff that are excellent and have really helped supervise and work and monitor the program. And we feel that it would be appropriate at this time to acknowledge through in an addition of 2 paid holidays, Thanksgiving and Christmas. The timing of this is to align those notice of assignments more closely with, also within the community education program, most notably in the preschool program, our paraprofessionals and their letter of assignment that they also have the paid holidays. The additional cost will be funded through the community education program, which is a fee-based program. And so, Macy, what have I left out? Anything?
No, you did an excellent job. It's just to recognize the fact that the employees that work with the school age care program are doing an excellent job, and we appreciate their effort, and just to start to get them aligned with the community ed letter of assignment that we also have with that as well.
Thank you. So we did go ahead and draft a potential motion for your consideration. Approve the addition of 2 paid holidays to the school age care staff notice of assignment effective the 2020-2021 school year to be funded from the fee-based community education program. Questions that Macy or I could answer?
So how many employees is that?
Macy, number of employees?
It's basically 2, sometimes 3.
I'll make a motion to approve it as presented.
Second.
I'll second that motion.
A motion has been made by Mr. Slake, seconded by Mr. Schmidt to approve the holiday pay for the school age care lead as presented. Is there any further discussion? Ms. Flatness, please.
Karen Flatness, aye. Rich Mueller,
Aye.
Travis Brown,
Aye.
Neil Schleich,
Aye.
Dan Schmidt,
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye. Motion carries. this time it is.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Seems like there's two of them kind of anxious to get out of here. A motion made by Mr. Schlake, seconded by Ms. Flatness to adjourn. Ms. Flatness, please.
Karen Flatness, aye. Rich Mueller.
Aye.
Travis Rowdy.
Aye.
Neil Slate.
Aye.
Dan Schmidt.
Aye.
And Rick.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
There's still 4 of us.
And
that
good
could've
working
said
with
nay.
you all.
Right, I
Fun.
know, we could have gone the other direction.
Thank you.
Good working with you. Good luck. And now I'm gonna pick up